Hello and welcome to Patrick's Models and Transport. Right, so remember in my previous video, I mentioned that the BR64 locomotive lost a kingpin when it was doing the test run. Eventually, test run with all the derailing, etc, etc, etc. I found the kingpin lying by the trackside. In fact, as you can see here, it's missing. It popped out of here. Let's add a spot of light because we have to definitely need more light here to see what we're doing. Okay, you can see that the kingpin is, this is the missing kingpin is, I'm trying to hold this in front of the camera and let you see what's what. That's out of focus. There it is. There's a missing kingpin right there. Because, and I'd noticed this when I did the maintenance, there's a slight crack in the plastic under there. You can see that there's a hairline crack right there. So as I mentioned during doing the maintenance videos, this locomotive worked plenty and worked hard, even by the condition of the commutator and so on and so forth. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we have to replace this kingpin. Of course, these are just pressed in. They're like nails. They're not bolted in. There's no thread. So that's a bit of a problem. They're exactly the same as on the Juef 030T BR locomotives. Right, so now we're going to use some ball bearing retaining compound. Here it is. There's a ball bearing retaining compound. Let's see if I can get that. This is Loctite. In Italian it's called frenante media resistenza per frenare parti filettate, fissare cuscinetti, sigillare raccordi. So practically it's for blocking screw threads, etc, 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 bearings and so on. It's a small, there we go, small red bottle. There we are. The content is blue. I used another one previously that was red. This is a blue one. And I'm not going to be using the contents of the bottle because on one occasion too much poured out all over the place because there was a sort of clot in the bottle and too much came out, and I salvaged it and put it in this small jar. And these jars are acqua di Sirmione. It's thermal water, good for when you have sinusitis and such like things to cleanse your nose. Okay. Which is a revelation. I do suffer from sinusitis. I live in northeastern Italy, which is a very cold and damp, miserable place in summer. No, sorry, in winter. It's a hot and damp, stuffy place in summer. So we have the Adriatic Sea is at 50 kilometers from where I live, but the northern Adriatic is very shallow. It's a bit of a puddle, and it doesn't make the place warmer in winter, and it doesn't make the place cooler in summer. But apart from that, it's a nice part of the world. There's plenty of nice things to see if you come here to Veneto. Lots of nice things. Beyond Venice, Venice is very interesting, of course. Okay, an interesting town, very nice. When you go to Venice, you can see all forms of transports. When you're on the Ponte della Libertà bridge that connects mainland Venice, meaning Mestre, to Venice, you can see trains, trams, motor cars, motor buses, boats and airplanes flying overhead going to Marco Polo International Airport. Okay, so apart from this rambling about, I'm not being the tourist office for a Veneto region, so last night I cleaned of course what happened here, when I lubricated the linkage, oil seeped in there and it popped out. Normal, it happens. It's the same reason for the Juef axles losing their gauge, wheel sets losing their gauge when you go and lubricate the things, because oil seeps in by capillary effect, and then after your wheels lose the gauging. Okay, so what I did last night, I cleaned everything out with a paintbrush steeped in lighter fluid to get rid of all the grease that had seeped inside the wheel, inside the housing, the kingpin housing, and then I actually put the kingpin itself in a small jar of lighter fluid. So we're going to fish that out, then we'll use the lighter fluid to do something else, to clean something, because model railways is a constant cleaning, especially when you have metal track. So we're going to fish that out of there, You can't see what I'm doing. I'm just trying to get the kingpin out without pouring petrol over the mat. Ah, come on, get out of there. Oh. Okay, boys. Is that coming out or not? Is it hell? Grab you there. Okay, got it. There it is. Here's our pal, the kingpin. Let's just let that dry. We'll shut the lid of the jar of lighter fluid, that way it doesn't evaporate. We'll just dry this with a little bit of tissue paper, drying the kingpin, so that apart from the fact that lighter fluid evaporates immediately, okay, and it adds to the aroma of this room. Okay, very well. Right, here's our kingpin. There we go. Here's the kingpin, ready to be replaced. So what we have to do, I'm putting it here on behind the locomotive. We have to be very careful now to put a spot of ball bearing retaining compound in the kingpin housing without getting it on the linkage, which might not be a very good idea. So I'm just going to use my good old friend, the wire, usual paperclip wire, which I'm going to clean anyway, because I use this for all sorts of dirty, including linkage lubrication. So I'm going to just clean it out in some lighter fluid to make sure that there's no oil on this. We don't want any oil on it. Which one's which? This is the one. There were different jar lids. Okay, this is one about. Okay, ooh, stinking stuff. Righto, that's ready. And we will now proceed to doing the operation. This is a sort of surgery. As you can see, I've popped a little piece of paper. These are blotting paper tester things that you use when you buy perfumes, and just to keep the linkage away from the wheel, because we do not want to get this stuff on the linkage. So I'm just going to put a spot here on the bit of wire, a blob. I'm going to have to improve here with a better. Let's see if maybe we can move back a bit, that way we have a little bit more. You see what I'm doing. Right, so I'm putting a drop on there. There's the drop. A drop on there. And now I'm going to be very, very careful and sort of go in and just put a drop in the kingpin housing without touching anything else. Okay, that's it. Wipe the bit of wire. And now, being very careful, I'll just take the kingpin and drop it in its housing. So there's the kingpin, there it is. Let's go in, being very careful. Just drop that in like that. There it's in, that's it in. And we'll just press it in all the way. So we don't want to get this stuff on the kingpin, otherwise it will lock up the linkage, and that's not a good idea at all. That's a rubbish idea. Okay, I'm checking. So I've kept the linkage away, the connecting rod, well away from the area with the glue, with this piece of paper, to space it, and this is pressed in. Now I've pushed it in all the way, and now we'll have to let it set. So this is going to have to sit here and set properly. I'm checking any of the other ones. I had a look at the wheels. The other wheels, there's no cracked kingpin housing, so it was just this one here. You can see this hairline crack right there. You can see there's a crack there. That's why this one came out, and I suspected this one would fall out. One good thing about this locomotive, the connection rods on this Piko locomotive, as the connection rods have no function. They're just there. They're just decorative because it's an all-wheel drive locomotive with the gears. this is just one piece. So on a Jouef locomotive, like, for example, oh, hold on. I've got a mess on the desk as usual. As you can see here, here's a spare parts donor. These are bolted on with bolts. And if one of them comes off, it's the linkage is in 4 parts in this case. Here it's an OA toe, correct? And if one of those comes off, it falls down, jams everything, goes on the track, everything gets seized up, and it's a bit of a mess. So in this case instead, it just simply, the kingpin fell out, and the locomotive continued going, because anyway this was held in position. The wheels don't go out of quartering and so on. Right, so that's done. Now we'll just have to let the compound set now before we can put this locomotive back on the track. And I hope this was an interesting video, just to show how to carry out a very simple repair, and using readily available products that you can buy at your tool store or hardware store or on internet and so on. And very simple, easy job. Of course, you have to be very, very careful not to get the compound, the retaining compound, the locking compound on either on the con rod. That's the whole point. Okay, very well. If you enjoyed the video, you can give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and of course click that famous notification bell. And that's all for me. I'm away for lunch. Cheerio, and see you next time. Ciao, ciao.